Hey, it's Jose Galison and No Way Jose. You can find me on the No Way Jose YouTube channel, also on just about everywhere you can find podcasts at. Also on the Liberty Movement YouTube channel and BitChute as well. This episode will not be on that because it's a little more political. I know it's a little ironic. I got that intro that says non-political. That was kind of my brand starting out, kind of expanding a little bit. Probably ought to change that. But Daniel Elwood did me a solid of the Actual Anarchy podcast, and he made that up for me. So, and I'm kind of a tech tard, so I'll get around to one day figuring out and getting a little better intro. But I really liked what he made for me. So whatever, we'll just have to ignore that it had that one little non-political blip. But that's kind of usually generally the focus of my thing. But today, my guest is James Jenneman of the Blackbird podcast, formerly the Urban Agorist. Maybe he'll go into that a little bit about his brand change. Today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm trying out this new thing. I'm calling them Jose Hangouts. And, kind of think of it like a bargain brand Dave Smith type format with a rotating Robbie, if you will. Kind of just go and do like current events, more free flowing, kind of shoot the shit. That's kind of what I'm going for. And obviously it's going to be kind of a little more political, especially with this week. It's been a fucking shit show this week. So this will be a real fun one. Before we get into it, I just want to, I did this in the last episode as well. A request for all you tech people, go check out endthefed.app and give me some feedback. Let me know what you think of it. Something I'm looking into, getting more involved with. And I want to, I find it really, really cool thing. It's a person-to-person crypto-powered app store. And especially with all the parlor stuff that happened this past week, it's kind of like we need to kind of diversify a little bit there. Obviously, like the crypto aspect of it. I think I've rambled enough. I'm going to go ahead and bring on James, and we're just going to shoot the shit about this crazy-ass week. What's up, James?
Hey. So considering Robbie is both smarter and funnier than Dave, it's an honor to be your rotating Robbie for tonight.
Wow, that is a controversial statement right out the gate.
Hey, no, you know what? I did a poll in the Part of the Problem Inner Circle group before it got zucked, and the majority thought that Robbie was funnier than Dave.
I actually was the one who voted for that.
There you go.
I would say Dave's smarter, but Robbie's funnier. But it's like it depends because Robbie is the foil to Dave. Yeah. So like, and he I think he has excellent comedic timing. So being a co-host, he's fucking phenomenal because Dave will go on his rants and he'll just come in with this punchy like quip that just like perfectly like just hits it. Whereas I don't feel like that's Dave's brand of comedy. Like he's not the one that just comes in with a one-liner and just like you're like whoa. Like he hits you with this like very neural like funny shit. You're like, oh, that is funny. Yeah. So he has a different style of comedy. So I feel like that's why when you put the two together, you get that brand that you get the impression that he is funnier. And I think in that situation of the Part of the Problem, he actually is kind of funnier. But I think like if I saw their stand-up, I've never seen their stand-up, so I don't know. I like Dave's stand-up, so I don't know who would be better in the stand-up department. But for being a foil to Dave, he makes himself seem funnier, and I really feel like that's what makes Robbie a great co-host.
All right. Well, as the bargain brand Dave, he's never gonna watch this, so you can stop sucking up to him.
Yeah, right. I mean, it is what it is.
I'm just kidding. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
You're good. So I figured, I know we've already had you on a few times, but I mean, me and you are both pretty fledgling podcasters. I feel like it's good to probably go ahead and have you introduce yourself again to the audience so they can let you know what's up, or you let them know what's up, who you are, all that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm James. I host the Blackbird podcast, formerly Urban Agorist. I guess, so the reason that I've changed the title of my podcast and sort of everything, so I don't know how much longer I'm going to be urban for starters. I mean, with the way stuff's going, living in the middle of a city is probably not the wisest thing in the world. And, we'll get into this actually, I think probably later on, but agorism, I think, is the best sort of lifestyle for someone who loves freedom and wants to be sort of separate from the political and the state. But it's not the only thing I want to focus on. So I went with Blackbird because it's the title of the Beatles song Blackbird, obviously, where, the bird is learning to fly, learning to see, even though his wings are broken, even though he's got sunken eyes, so he's like blind, but, taking all of his defects and handicaps and stuff, and still making the best of it. I think it's a pretty cool message for someone who feels handicapped by the sort of mechanisms of control that try to, and whether that's the state or the social networks trying to censor you or whatever. It's or even yourself, your own sort of self limitations. So I've my goal has been to kind of not be as political, although I did just have Pete Quinones on, and it was nothing but Libertarian Party inside baseball. So, and then Monica Perez before him. Before her, I did have Alex Hatch from Mantafly, which is great. So I think I'm gonna have a pretty good balance between pseudo political, entrepreneur stuff, personal development, that sort of thing.
It's funny. You brought up a few things there. I could launch off of. Oh yeah, I kind of want to bring up the Blackbird thing. When you first told me about that, I was a little hesitant about the name, but then I did watch a little intro episode and explaining it, and I also saw your logo that you came with, and I just felt like it weirdly fit your aesthetic. I feel like sometimes aesthetic's a hard thing to like explain to people, but once you see it and you see the logo and see how it all comes together, and then also the meaning behind it, I actually feel like it weirdly fit, and especially it's also. You are the urban agorist, and I just feel like, I'm an agorist as well, and I feel like it weirdly, the way you explained it kind of encapsulate what agorism is in a sense without having this lofty attachments that some people might get scared off by. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I had invited a couple of people on, and they didn't want to be on a political podcast, and I don't want to be branded as a political podcast, and I feel like just that having like the political philosophy of agorism, even though it's kind of anti-politics, it'll scare a lot of people off. So it didn't really help my brand that
it's one of those things you don't really get unless you're inundated. Like for a lot of people that just know that is a political philosophy, but they don't really actually understand the ins and outs of it. For us being agorists, we're like, it's not really that political. It's political technically, but not really. But it's like the same way that atheists are religious. It's like, yeah, kind of. Like, sorta, not really. I mean, obviously you can go on a whole other tangent about how some atheists are religious in a way.
Yeah,
but
what's the name of that guy that he's one of the famous atheists. He's got that show that he and Jordan Peterson.
Matt Dillahunty?
No, damn it! What's the name of his show?
I thought you were going to say the debate, because I know Jordan Peterson debated Matt Dillahunty.
No, it wasn't really a debate. They were talking about truth. And Jordan Peterson thought true was like an arrow flies true. It's straight. It's going towards its thing. And this guy was like, no, true is like objectivity, like scientific truth. I think his podcast is called Waking Up. Something like that.
That like slightly rings a bell, but not really. So
Sam Harris.
Sam Harris, yes, God, yeah, I used to listen to him a lot.
He says he doesn't like the word atheist because it makes theism the default.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
you're defining yourself by not being theist. Yeah.
So
I get that. Yeah, Sam Harris is an interesting fellow too, because he has a whole other theory of like spirituality as a non-religious person, which I did an episode with John Hartman recently where he's into like mindfulness and stuff, and like Eastern philosophy, karma, meditation, all that kind of stuff, the stuff that you don't even really need to attach religion to. And I just found that interesting. That's like you can kind of still have spirituality without having to believe in a higher power necessarily. So yeah, I mean that was a little bit of a kind of going on all sorts of tangents here, but I also wanted to mention you brought up your episode, and I did like almost it's funny because I feel like we're almost like sister or brother shows, if you will, because we kind of started at the exact same time, but like ironically right at the same time I recorded an episode with Sal the agorist on like why agorism and politics are like incompatible. You around the same time recorded an episode with Pete on why like you should do the two together kind of deal. Which I mean, obviously, me and Sal probably disagree, but that'll be a topic we bring up later, so that'll be interesting. But instead of being around bush, let's hop into it. Let's talk about the crazy ass week we've had. Obviously, the focus is the Capitol building.
When you invited me on, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to read the news. I don't know if I want to do that because I don't follow stuff like I used to.
I'm
I've
sitting
gotten so burnt out on current events in the last year. It's kind of been impossible to avoid this week. So thank you for inviting me this week and not, 2 weeks from now after the inauguration. After Joe Biden, our president-elect, is inaugurated president, for all the Q-tards out there. Yeah, so the Capitol thing. What happened?
Oh, you don't know? Yeah, I honestly, I only loosely pay attention, so this will be fun. Me and you, both people who are kind of both got burnt out on it, like kind of giving our take from only loosely paying attention and not doing a ton of homework. I'll be honest, but obviously the what we heard is that a bunch of Trump supporters got all riled up at a Trump rally and took over the Capitol. And for me, there is that like one. I mean, I'm an anarchist. You're an anarchist. Agorists are kind of anarchists. So, I mean, for me, I don't know about you, there was a small part of me, that same feeling I kind of had with the BLM riots, especially when they first started, before they started getting like, okay, now this is just turning into some like commie, eat the rich type shit. Like, I kind of, when they were burning down like police stations and shit, I was kind of like, yes, like part of me is kind of like, maybe this is not smart, and it may not end well, but part of me is like, I mean, if you're gonna go after someone, I mean, that is the one to go after.
You get like a little rush, like just a little dopamine, knowing that someone's doing something that kind of furthers your cause, even though they're not doing it for the same reasons that you would have them do it. Not that you would do it, not outside of Minecraft anyway.
When you say to serve your cause, because I actually, in a way, it kind of does, because it didn't serve their cause because of their point. But for me and you, I would make the case that this, in the long term, would serve our cause. But I'll let you go on.
I don't know. I mean, it didn't serve their cause. That's why I thought it was a big hoax at the beginning. Although I guess the Viking dude has recently been interviewed by a reputable news source, for what that's worth, and I guess he's a legit Trump supporter who just got a little out of hand or something. I don't know. You watch the video and look at the pictures. I mean, those people were let in. It's not like they were just like bum rushing the Capitol. They were walking in between the velvet ropes like tourists.
Yeah, so, I don't know what to make of all that, because that is I'm not one. It seems you're a little more conspiracy minded than I am sometimes. I mean, I do believe there are conspiracies. I'm just not one to generally jump there. I mean, I might entertain it for fun, but I mean that was very weird. That I was like, that definitely implies something there. But I mean, it always is like, it could just be one or two bad actors. Who knows?
Well, and I mean, protesting in the Capitol is not unheard of. I mean, you've had Congress people leading in protesters into the Capitol. It's just that they don't enter the chambers. So either security thought, hey, these people are going to protest just like normal, and so we'll let them do that. Just stay between these ropes and protest your heart out, or the powers that be in Congress knew it was coming and decided to make a huge story out of it. Or if you really want to put on your tinfoil hat, Trump's part of it. And, I mean, he egged them on. He knew it was going to happen. He knew that it was going to be blown out of proportion. He maybe even knew that, people were going to die. But, I mean, what's 5 deaths to the technocrats who, want to be ruling us?
Yeah, we did have the 5 deaths. Do you know per se? I know there was one that got shot by the cops, but were the rest just like happenstance deaths, or because I know there was like, I think one person like a heart attack or some shit. I think it was just random medical stuff. Because I mean, anytime you have a giant crowd of people, I mean, there's might be 1 or 2 people that have some medical complications, So, and there were like, it looked like thousands of people from what I saw there. So I don't know if you recollect or no.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I got a text from somebody the other day asking me if I knew. She had looked it all up and chronicled all the different deaths. I don't know. I'm not gonna try to dig it up on my phone, but
No.
Yeah. So there was the lady that was apparently shot by the cops. Although that, I don't know the ins and outs of the skeptical take on that. But I mean, that cop was firing at her, but there were like other cops behind her. It was pretty reckless looking. And then, yeah, I guess one cop died. He like got beat to death by a fire extinguisher or something just brutal like that.
That's
Ugh,
pretty goddamn metal.
I know. And then like the three others, I don't know. From what I understand, two of them were quote health related, maybe a heart attack or a stroke or something like that. I don't know about the fifth one.
Yeah, no, it's just always like it just is weird how the narrative has been around this whole thing that it's been this big crazy event. And don't get me wrong, it's like anytime anyone dies is bad, and this was needless violence and like it didn't serve anything. So in the grand scheme, it was probably not good. I mean, I guess you can make the case that maybe like in the end it'll I think it'll kind of take a lot of the conservatives or the right leaning folks and make them realize that like, hey, you're not going to get what you want out of the system, kind of deal. But yeah, it's just funny how they've been framing it when we had literally 3 months of fucking riots with people dying, businesses getting burned down, whole cities just getting burned, like just insanity. And it's like for like literally while I was taking a dump this morning, I saw like a tweet from AOC about something about like I mean I'm learning more and more to love Twitter because I just saw like, and even though I never got any reply at all, there was something from like AOC about like going on about like about how the fucking like how these Congress members who supported and pushed this event or like made it worse or whatever, how they should be held accountable. And then I just like just sit on the toilet, just like sit in the toilet messaging AOC going, well, we're going to apply the same standard to the ones who did the same thing with the 3 months of riots, right? Being consistent here, aren't we? And so yeah, I just thought it was funny. That's just like the way that narratives around this, as if we didn't just come out of like months of riots.
I know all of a sudden the left found a mob that they didn't like.
Yeah. Which is just made from some golden ass memes. Because yeah, like just the pearl clutching has been insane. And it's just like we've reached a level where it's like they just assume that no one's paying attention. It's like, and the funny thing is though, you'll meet real live people though that will like just parrot these talking points and just like, are you not seeing what is going on? It's not even. It's so low effort at this point. It's just like what is even going on here? So.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to kind of look. I mean, who does benefit from this? Even if everything they say happened exactly how they say it happened, it's not Trump that's benefiting from this. It's not the right. I mean, it's there were people who weren't able to board airplanes for Christ's sake. What this serves is Joe Biden's domestic terrorism agenda, and on a grander scale, it serves the technocrats who, in a week and a half are going to be descending upon Davos, Switzerland to, plot out our next decade. That's who this serves. It serves the surveillance state. It has nothing to do with Trump support.
Yeah,
even if Trump is everything that Trump supporters think he is, or everything that Trump detractors think he is, it doesn't serve him.
Yeah, I don't think it serves Trump either. But I would also make the case I don't think it's going to serve Biden or the left in general. Maybe Biden, because I do think maybe he'll get short-term gains out of it. I mean, the elite never really ever face any consequences, even if it ends up moving the narrative more towards we would like it. Like, I don't think overall it's going to necessarily benefit the right or the left. I think it's going to. I think a lot of people. All right, good way to put it is look at what 8 years of Obama did to the right. We ended up with Trump because they were at 8 years of being called racist, all this stuff, and just completely shitting on them. Just like kind of like a lot of what's going on here, but to a much more subtle, lesser degree. And now they are just overplaying their hand like crazy. And then on top of that, you've told in a roundabout way the right that, hey, I know you have all these concerns and you got your guy in. But while he was in, he was completely ineffectual, barely got anything done he wanted, and didn't get reelected again. To them perceived that he got his election stolen from them. And so, like, what is this going to do in the long run? I'm actually kind of pretty optimistic about this whole situation in the long run. I actually think Biden getting in, much like how Isarvin's been kind of saying recently, I think Biden getting in is kind of going to be a positive for people like me and you. Maybe not the short term.
Can you elaborate on Yarvin's thesis on that?
I mean, he kind of goes more into like, cause he's really on the power structures and such, but he kind of goes into like how, like, if you like when you're playing the political game, it's supposed to be like you want to benefit your friends and hurt your enemies, and he kind of goes into what did these 4 years of Trump do? It did the exact opposite, because you look at all the media and they've been doing like actually great, because like they were completely losing traction when under Obama, because people were just like checked out, because it's like, for one, they never had anything controversial or anything interesting to say, whereas it was like, even though it was just nonsense these past 4 years, it was interesting. So a lot of people were checking in, because like the news kind of was dying under Trump. Like stuff like mediums like what we're doing now were taken over. And yeah, and he was kind of going into too how like it didn't help the people who were his allies, because like think about who Trump appealed to. And did he really do anything to benefit them in any real way? I mean, you got like a kind of marginal tax decrease and some other like little things here and there, but not really. And that's kind of what Yarvin went into, and that's kind of why he thinks it actually will be good for Biden to get in, because you're kind of getting the same of what you're getting with Obama. He's basically just Obama 2.0, just a really shitty old white Obama. You know?
All right, but so that's Yarvin's optimistic take, but Yarvin is not us.
No, I know, but I mean,
So,
I kind of tie it into my thinking too, in how it'll like, I think it's going to detach a lot of people from believing in the political system in general.
okay, yeah, I think if we play our cards right, that's a potential.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, there's people above the cathedral. There's people that the media and the state and academia and now these giant tech companies who they report to in this hierarchy, and those people, they think in generations. They don't think in like election cycles or news cycles, God forbid. These are the people that have been funding communists and fascists and liberals since the Civil War in America. I mean, and these are the people that I think are the ones that we really need to worry about. And that's why, and that's not to skip to like another topic, but that's why when I hear libertarians calling Facebook and Google and Amazon and hell AIG just canceled I forgot his name. He's like a professional athlete turned conservative commentator. They canceled his insurance policy for his social media activity.
I didn't hear that. That's fucking insane.
all these companies that libertarians love to call, they're private. They can do whatever the hell they want. They're not private. They're just not private. These are companies that are either directly founded by, like Google, the deep state, or are so entrenched in the deep state, like AIG, which was bailed out in 2008 and 9, that they are part of the state. They're not private entities in any sense of the term, other than that shareholders own stock in them, which is another issue when you get into it. This fascist merging of corporation and state.
Yeah, I mean, this corporation stuff is literally what fascism is, and it's funny that like you hear the left screeching about fascism, and it's like you guys don't even really know. Your fascism is your because I mean, there's so much about that like corporate like progressive bullshit about like how they always focus on race and like, oh yeah, we're the company of like progressivism, but in reality they're just serving you bullshit, and they're the fucking, oh god, I totally just lost my train of thought, but. Just completely shit out there. Fuck. But yeah, God, what were we talking about? I completely just shit out. I don't know what. My brain just kind of had just a loop-de-loop there.
Corporate, like private corporations versus just being part of the state.
Yeah. I'll bring it back to. I kind of wanted to touch on too that's kind of why I really like agorism when I first started reading it, because it was like this next level thinking where like I feel like for some reason just like libertarian thinking and a lot of reading that I've done with libertarian circles, it's kind of like a point that while it's so obvious, most of them miss. They don't really go into much or focus on, and it's just that corporations are this bastardized version of like a mixture of the market and the state, and so like they are not something that would exist, or at least exist to that capacity within a true free market. but yet people have this like glorified, I don't know, like rosy view of corporations for some reason. Like you get like the Ron Swansons who, they made multiple jokes in Parks and Rec about like, oh yep, like, look at this park. Like if in a true free market, we'd be a corporation and we'd, look at this tree and give them $1. And it's like, that's just like a lower base level thinking of like libertarianism, where it's just that you're not really thinking to the next level,
Yeah, I don't like it when libertarians like have Ron Swanson as their avatar or whatever, because like he wasn't a sympathetic to libertarian character. He's a complete caricature of libertarians. Like he was making fun of you. Like Kurt Schilling was the name of the guy who AIG canceled, by the way.
Oh shit, Kurt, and that's fucking nuts. Like, I mean, that's like AIG was insurance, but still, that's like a hops. That's like literally like that's what AIG is, like a financial company, right? But I'm assuming they do insurance as well. Or do they only do insurance?
I think AIG stands for American Insurance Group, but
okay. Well,
I mean, insurance is like life insurance is an investment. It's kind of intertwined between financial and lifestyle, I guess. Like insurance agents have a fiduciary responsibility to their clients and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
which gets into another thing. I mean, look, if your business is licensed, and I don't mean like, I need to get a business license to start a retail, a mom and pop shop in my town or whatever. I mean, like if you need to get a license from the federal government to do business, for instance, starting a radio station, or again, like passing the insurance exam and getting your license to sell insurance, all of that stuff makes you beholden to the state. It's not like, your local radio station is just free to say whatever they want. They're licensed, and if they go off the reservation, not to use a culturally insensitive term, but if they go, off script or whatever, then they're going to lose their license. And it's getting to where that script that they can go off of is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. The number of things that they can say before getting canceled. And that's an issue. That's a problem. It's not private companies doing whatever they want. It's ostensibly private companies that are so heavily regulated or so heavily in the pocket of, or, I mean, look, so thinking that they're doing the right thing because they're led by idiots, that they are part and parcel with the state. And, if you look at like Vin Armani's work, which I know I bring up Vin Armani every single time I talk to anybody, but he's right.
Yeah,
he's got this theory, and it's based on a Hindu philosopher named P.R. Sarkar, I think is his name. Funny, I can remember his name, but not Kurt Schilling. There's like 4 different social zeitgeists, the spirit of the age. You've got the common man, and you've got the warrior, and you've got the priestly, like the priest philosopher type, and you've got the merchant, the businessman. And I would hold, and I think history bears this out, that and so like the zeitgeist, the spirit of the age, just kind of cycles from one to the other over and over again throughout history. And we were in the middle of the Enlightenment, the beginning of this philosophical age where reason and rationality and logic and science and materialism ruled the day. And it reached its kind of zenith right around the founding of America. Marx was part of it. The Austrians were part of it. But around the progressive era, when you had in America business and science and government all merging together under Wilson, Roosevelt, the other Roosevelt, it's when science lost morality. It's when the scientists started building these massive weapons that could wipe out humanity without any counting of the cost of that. It's when technocracy was developed as an ideology. It's when, the railroad tycoons that were so heavily involved in the state that they ran the parties. I mean, if you read Rothbard's Progressive Era book, you can see where, these parties, the Republicans and Democrats, weren't ideological at all. It was just like whether you were allied with the Morgans or the Rockefellers. I don't know if those are the two big names that he names, but it's something like that.
Yeah. It's funny. I agree the progressive era concepts was what I was totally building to with my brain fart, and then you brought.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad I picked that up for you. I hope it doesn't stink too bad. Haha, get it? Because it's a brain fart.
Oh, it definitely does stink to me. I had a thing going, and just blew it.
So the progressive era started this merging of state, and by state I mean the philosophical class, the politicians, the modern day priesthood in the secular society, with the merchant class. And what we're seeing now is the merchant class subsuming the political class. And libertarians need to come to grips with that. Because if they don't, if they continue to go down this Rothbardian, nothing against Rothbard. The guy was absolutely brilliant, obviously, but he wasn't infallible, and he didn't see what he was in the middle of, because hindsight is 20/20.
I would actually say, not to cut you off, but I would actually say, because I know reading the disagreements between Konkin and Rothbard, he actually seemed to concede a little bit on some of Konkin's points about corporations being a bastardized product of the state. But I think he just didn't put enough focus, and so that's kind of where we got lost. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, and sure, and I mean, in the 50s through the 80s when he was writing, it wasn't what it is today. You didn't have Twitter as the public square. Like, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech did not mean 24/7 access to everyone's ear holes. It was, the ability to publish a newspaper or whatever. So Twitter, in a lot of ways, leveled that playing field so that the cathedral was not the only ones who had freedom of speech. But on the other hand, now we're seeing that the cathedral really would like to be the only ones with freedom of speech. And so they're laying it on Twitter pretty thick to make sure that happens. And likewise, they want Amazon and Google and Facebook to be monitoring our every move. Derek Bros has a really good video out right now, talking about the origins of Google, for instance. I mean, I didn't know this, but Google was heavily funded by the defense or the intelligence agencies. Damn near
all the big tech shit is, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. And I had heard it. I just didn't know it. Like, I hadn't really put two and two together, I guess. Facebook is also kind of fishy. It was, there was a DARPA program. I think it was called Livestream or something like that. That was, just like Facebook. You were connecting with one another and just putting your life out on Front Street for everybody to see. And according to Derek Bros, now I can't verify it, but according to Derek Bros, the day that this DARPA program was closed down was the day that Facebook went into business.
Add to it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Keep your turn.
I was gonna have a silly aside. I was just saying, to add to it. I mean, you look at fucking Zuckerberg and try to tell me that is not some sort of lizard person or a robot wearing a fucking skin suit. There's barely a human in there.
Yeah, far be it for me to be David Icke, but yeah, if anybody's a lizard person, it's him. And then Amazon's another tough one, because Amazon's not as, it doesn't censor as much as the other ones in this space. Hey, you just dropped something, dude.
Yeah, I just knocked over a chair behind me. That's totally great for content. But go on.
Are you standing up? Do you stand up when you do these?
Yeah, I feel like it helps dissipate that nervous energy of talking.
Yeah, I probably should do that. I fidget too much, or else I just sit here with my hand in my head in my hand. Yeah. For those listening, I'm lounged on a desk chair with my feet up.
I also try to like drink something because it kind of like it's like that like Talladega Nights thing. Like, what do I do with my hands?
I know. I've got 3 different drinking vessels. One of them's empty though. Anyway, what was? Oh, Amazon. So yeah, I mean, Amazon. Look, they will sell you any book you want, which is great. Like as far as I know, now maybe they've been taking books out and I just don't know it.
And I know Erica's cookbook a few months ago, and it was still on there. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and hell, I mean, for books like that, you can just use what is it, library.lol or something like that. It's called Library Genesis. But anyway, yeah. So Amazon doesn't suppress information quite as much as its sort of cohorts in this big tech space. But on the other hand, I mean, look, Amazon is providing cloud service to the CIA. They won another bid for cloud storage for DARPA or Space Force or some kind of fringe weird defense agency in 2018, and that is officially enough when Donald Trump started talking all kinds of shit about Jeff Bezos because they backed out of it. But I mean, Amazon's just as in bed with the federal government, maybe even more so as the social media companies. And, I mean, there's something to be said for the idea that if you're buying the Anarchist Cookbook off Amazon, they've got your name and address and credit card number, and who knows what else. They can just fork that over whenever the Department of Homeland Security asks for it.
I mean, for people like me and you, it's almost just safe to assume we're probably on some list anyways. So, not that I know me and you aren't the burn it down type anarchists, but it's still like I don't feel like the Cathedral or the Fed boys are as good at discernment, so they just kind of lump us all in the same group. So.
Yeah, I mean, I figure if I'm on a list, look, I've got 1,100. I've got 23 fewer Twitter followers than I did a week ago. I tell you what, but I've got 1,100 Twitter followers. I'm a nobody for now, which is good. I can be on a list, I guess, but they're not coming after me yet. I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it either. I live out in the sticks, so it's like, I mean, if they want to try to red flag my ass or some shit, I mean, I'm somewhat ready. I probably won't win, but you busted my house in the middle of the night. There will be return fire.
Tell me about where you live. Do you are you in just like a plain old suburb, or are you like way out in the country, or?
It's like kind of somewhere in between. I live in it's a deed restricted community. So, but it's like, I guess the way that the community was made is every lot has at least an acre. So I guess there's a plan when they made it. I have like 2, but then on top of that, mine's at the end of the cul-de-sac, and the cul-de-sac at the end has like tens or maybe even hundreds of acres of woods behind me. So like I'm butted up against a wilderness preserve. So yeah.
I have trouble envisioning this. Is it like just really long, skinny properties? I can't imagine living on an acre and also living on a cul-de-sac.
No, I mean, I probably have, I don't know, it's probably like 50 to 75 yards from like my property to my neighbors, and then obviously behind my house is like is nothing but like basically to put it bluntly, I could piss outside and in most spots, and it probably wouldn't be an issue. I mean, there's some areas where people could see me, but I have a fairly decent size, and there's like foliage and stuff. So like, and then also on top of that, there's like, it's a country area, so it's like, I don't know, like it's all like redneck rich people is kind of where I'm at. Is basically that's what it is.
Do you have to walk? Do you have to walk super far to get to your mailbox?
I wouldn't say super far. I mean, my I'd say my driveway length is probably like, I don't know, 75 yards maybe.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah,
I don't know, not too bad. I mean,
I'm sorry. I'm really considering this moving out to the middle of nowhere thing, and like, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it right. I don't necessarily want to be off grid, but I don't want to know my neighbors unless I have to, like unless I want to, I guess.
Yeah, if you hit me up, because I'm in Florida, and I mean, Florida, if like going forward, I think if the way I think the things are going to go in the future, I feel like there's certain areas you want to be at. And I think Florida is probably one of those states that's going to be on the better side of things.
Well, if I'm going to go to a different state, I mean, it'll probably be South Dakota. It's right next door to Minnesota. And we kind of want to be close to my partner's family. Although, my family's in Texas, so maybe we'll go somewhere between. Iowa's pretty all right. Or hell, I don't know. Florida scares me because of all the Florida man stories. Anyway, why don't we get back on topic? Let's do that. What were we talking about?
I was actually thinking earlier, this is totally going to become just like my episode with Patrick McFarland, that we found out we had way more chemistry than we thought we would from our first talk. This is totally going to have to probably be a two-parter, because I really did want to touch on like my episode of Sal and your episode on Pete, because they perfectly contrast each other. But I totally don't think we're going to have time for that.
I love Patrick McFarland so much, and I've got the tab open for your episode with him, but it's an hour and a half long. So like I haven't put in the time to listen to it yet. But I love that dude so much. He's so great.
Yeah, we have like great chemistry, and he's just an awesome guy. And it's like we probably honestly, from like the stuff we were covering, because we were doing a 2020 in review, and I didn't realize how. I mean, I've listened to some of his content, but just like then once I started riffing with him, I just like feel like we did really played well off each other. And I'm like, we totally could probably done like 6 hours on it. And it's like we got to do this in like one episode. Because I can't. I mean, it's already like 2 weeks into 2021, and I'm like, we're trying to schedule a second episode for 2020 in review.
I could not do a 2020 in review thing. I've been reading Pete's 2020 in review on his Substack, and like all of this, I don't even remember it. Like 2020 to me was COVID. That's it. It was me bitching on Twitter nonstop about COVID. I'm sure so much stuff was happening behind the scenes that I didn't even know about. I had Scott Horton on my show to talk about the peace treaties. We didn't even get around to that because he just gave me a whole history going back to like World War II. But anyway, so, okay, great.
Yeah, that was one thing me and Patrick kind of realized as we were going through ours, is how fucking like how much that there was. Because as we were talking, we were remembering other things that came up, and we're like, oh shit, like for example, the Soleimani thing, we're just kind of like, oh, we just both forgot about this completely. And it was like,
was that in 2020?
Yes, and it was huge.
So that was like 2018.
No, that was totally 2020. We totally assassinated a foreign leader in 2020. A foreign leader of a country we're already pretty shitty relations with. Yeah, no, that was insane. I remember, like, as he said, I was like, holy shit, that was this year. But yeah, no, we'll bring it up. You mentioned this is a really terrible segue, and I meant to bring it up earlier, but you're on a roll. But I'll bring it back to segue anyways. You mentioned the cathedral earlier, and I thought it would be a great segue to bring into one of the points I want to bring up is the LP's response to the Capitol building thing. So you obviously have some stuff to say about that, so I'll let you rip.
Look, the LP, they took exactly the take that you would think the LP. So did Reason Magazine. I've been so disappointed with Reason. It's my favorite magazine. I wrote Nick Gillespie a letter once and was like, hey man, I'm down on my luck and I'm really like interested in libertarianism. I just wanted to write you and let you know I like came across one issue of your magazine, and I appreciate everything that you're doing, and one of these days I'll subscribe. And he gave me, he was editor in chief. He gave me a free subscription like for years. I owe a lot to Reason Magazine, and to see them take such blue-pilled positions on everything, it just breaks my heart, especially with Catherine Mangue Ward in charge there, because like finally we got this anarcho-capitalist chick with purple hair in charge, and she's like, oh no, I just want safe and secure elections and all that. She's not even in favor of elections. She's a non-voter, for crying out loud. Anyway, the LP's response, just so you know, everyone who ever becomes a libertarian has to sign this pledge to fucking I can't even say it, reject political violence or whatever. Yeah. Which is not the case.
No, it's violence that's not merited, essentially. We abide by the NAP. Pretty much the way I interpret it, if it is violence against the state, it is merited. It just may not be smart. Yeah. And then you kind of went into that with your episode with Pete. Sorry, you go ahead.
No, it's fine. I want to find the okay, to validate my membership, I and this is the other thing about the LP. They will just go back and forth between talking about libertarian and Libertarian Party member, which to me, I mean, you just have to look at the last, not Joe Jorgensen, but the prior several presidential candidates to know that There's a big difference between a Libertarian Party member and a Libertarian. Jorgensen is the most Libertarian person to run on their ticket since Harry Brown, for all her faults.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's what totally like got me on the track of full on agorism, because it was just like in this year, like don't get me wrong, she wasn't that bad, but just in this year, how you weren't just like coming out just fist of flying, just like fuck this COVID shit, like you can't be doing that, just the complete cathedral position on everything, you know, like But sorry, go ahead.
All right, so the pledge is: to validate my membership, I certify that I oppose the initiation of force to achieve political or social goals. That initiation of force is a really, really key term. It has nothing to do with political violence. And look, don't do political violence, kids, because it's a stupid thing to do. You don't, like Pete says, channeling Machiavelli, you don't enter a war that you can't win. And storming the Capitol or assassinating a politician or flying a plane into the World Trade Center or whatever is not going to further your goals. So don't do it because it's stupid, but don't not do it because it's wrong. I mean, any force against the government is defensive, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, a great example of this is I think it was a year ago or so. I mean, it's so hard to gauge time in this current climate, but I don't remember when it was. I mean, it was a while ago where some guy got pulled over and he was getting fucked with by the cops. And like he had kind of been like, "Hey, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone." It was some just standard pullover, and he totally was like, "Leave me alone," and just was like completely being respectful. Was like, "Hey guys, I don't want to do this. Leave me alone." And then they just kept fucking with him, and I think it was like 2 or 3 cops. And all of a sudden, he had a gun on him, and he pulled it out and just blew him the fuck away. Just like, it was like 2 or 3 of them, and just offed him. And like, for me, I remember like so many people were just like gassed, like, oh my God. And for me, I was like, yeah, he fucking warned them. I don't know how many goddamn times, leave me the fuck alone. And they did not respect it. So I completely think he was completely morally in the right. Now, was that the most intelligent thing to do? No. That dude's going to fucking sit in prison the rest of his life, if not fucking go take a seat in Old Sparky. Like, his life is over. Like, that was stupid as fuck. But at the same time, I can completely respect that, like, completely morally in the right. Nothing at all immorally was wrong with what he did. They completely just continued to aggress him. They were trying to yank him out of the car. I think they even tased him. Like, and he's just like, I don't want to get the car. I didn't do anything wrong. Leave me alone. Like, and yeah, and he just blew him away. I think he had like drugs on him or something, and that was kind of like what he just didn't like want to have to deal with all that. And it was just, yeah. So it's just like completely moral on the right, but just dumb, you know? And it's just kind of the same idea here. Yeah.
I guess that also raises the question of like, where is the boundary on that though? So the pledge is, again, I oppose the initiation of force to achieve political or social goals. So is punching a Nazi the initiation of force to achieve political or social goals? Or, I mean, even more benign, is punching a voter the initiation of force to achieve political or social goals? Or is it defensive? I mean, at what point does it become defensive, I guess is my question. What do you think of that?
I guess I get what you're getting at, but all right, if we're going to get like super autistic with it, I was like, I think the best example you brought there was probably a voter. Now, while I am an agorist, I've said this multiple times, like it was actually like a minor disagreement me and Sal had in our talk, is I kind of am like in between Konkin and Spooner's position. I do not think it is immoral to vote. I just don't. And a lot of agorists think it is. I don't think it's immoral to vote, but I do think it's counterproductive. I just don't think it's immoral, because it's the same idea as like something can be moral but not productive. It's the same thing with the guy that blew away the cops. It's like you kind of just fuck yourself over there, buddy, but you were completely morally in the right. And that's kind of how I feel about voting. That's my stance generally. And I think that like, so I guess in that situation, you'd really have to get in the weeds of like, well, what did you vote on and why did you vote? And if it was you're doing it to reduce the scope of government or to reduce your tax, on you or whatever, if you were trying to like essentially impose more violence on others, then yeah, I mean, technically speaking, sure. But it's also one of those things where it's like, this doesn't really serve your ends in any meaningful way, So yeah, because I mean, I kind of rambled on there but I guess I kind of like, anyone who meaningfully is taking on any sort of aggression against you, sure, I think technically you're morally in the right, but now should you? Probably not. So I mean, those are different questions, you know?
I think also, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's a difference too between defiling the Senate chamber or I don't know. I remember if it's the House or the Senate, but this is some super hallowed temple of democracy that only the Congress people and like certain of their clerks ever even get to set foot in this chamber, and so for these plebeians to just rush in here and start sitting in the chairs and stealing the lecterns and stuff like that. So there's a difference between that, defiling this sacred place. I mean, it's like smashing the golden calf almost. I mean, people have made idols of this. There's a difference in that and firing into the congressional baseball practice.
Yeah,
or
difference. Yeah,
punching Nancy Pelosi. If I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, Rand Paul was in that baseball practice too, and yeah, exactly. You shrugged your shoulders for those listening, and so what's the answer there? I mean, what is justified political violence? It's a really tough question.
I think it's murky. I think it's I think we as I mean that's kind of the reason why, to bring it back to Conklin again. I've always liked the idea that he had like the gray markets, and even then he would say that like it shouldn't be that necessarily you should be completely in the white or the black. It's not like no one's expecting you to completely be like all of my income is outside of the state, because that would be retarded. You're just gonna screw yourself over. So I think the same thing kind of applies to morality and questions of this. I know we like to bring it down to like the NAP and just black and white, but sometimes there are shades of gray. And that's also kind of why, I go on this a lot. I kind of like a lot of what Sterner had to say. And like, it's not as simple as just this like binary things all the time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we get too autistic and too just want things to be in these perfect little boxes, and not everything is. So, and sometimes you have to think about like, how is this going to serve my ends? Mm-hmm. And like that kind of ties it back to Sterner a little bit. And I do think that plays a lot into it. Now, whether something's moral or not is kind of in some aspects almost, in a lot of ways, kind of almost meaningless to some extent. I mean, I do think it plays into it in a way, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like we were bringing up, like, we can say someone's perfectly morally in the right, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't serve you and your ends, it's kind of like, why are you doing it? So it's kind of almost like the morality thing is almost like an intellectual masturbation, if you will, So, yeah. And I do think it matters. I'm not saying that doesn't matter. I'm just saying it is kind of like at the end of the day, like we're kind of off in intellectual la-la land here. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like,
yeah,
if it's not serving your means, your ends or whatever, it's just kind of, it's a waste. Dude, we're at almost an hour and we still have so much shit to cover. But I love it though. I like it when we're like, when you have these episodes where you're just like going on and so how it's good. Let's move on from that. And I want to kind of go into the social media response, especially with like a focus on Parlor. I know you have a whole probably rant prepared for Parlor.
Oh God.
So
yeah.
That with
well, you. let me just clarify that. Like, look, if you put Nancy Pelosi or Thomas Massey in front of me, I would not advocate or want to do violence to either one of them.
No,
and it's not just because I'm scared, it's because they're people. And like, I'm one of those people who, like, I don't even know if I would be able to kill someone in self-defense. So, and like legitimate, imminent danger self-defense. So, we were speaking entirely abstractly before.
Yeah,
I just want to clarify that.
Morally justified to do something doesn't mean you should, and that was kind of my whole point I was getting at too. And it's same thing. Like, even though I think Nancy Pelosi is a reprehensible human being, if I had her in front of me, I wouldn't. Even if I had some cosmic deity who came down and said, "Hey, whatever you do here is like completely like off the books. No one will ever fucking know. Whatever. You can just call this a pass." I still wouldn't do it, because it's like this doesn't do anything. This is just mindless, useless violence for no reason. And that's kind of, I think to some extent, kind of what we should be against to an extent. Like, like we shouldn't be like, I actually think that would be the opposite of what we want, you know? So just because you're morally justified to do something doesn't always mean you should. It's kind of also part of what my earlier rant was. And that's why, like I said, if I had Nancy Pelosi in front of me, I wouldn't do anything like that to her, even if I knew I completely had a free pass from the universe or whatever. It just, why? It's just, I'm not going to just do violence just to do violence. I'm a human being, not a savage. So, yeah. And I could kill someone in self-defense easily.
Yeah.
My lizard brain kicks in. Yeah.
So, let's see. Parlor. So I was beating this drum early and often that Parlor is a giant honeypot and libertarians should stay the hell away from it.
Not to cut you off, but you totally did on I think our first episode together.
I've been saying it since Devin Nunes started talking about it last summer. I mean, look, you don't have a social network that is funded by the Mercers, founded by someone who you just have to Google the dude that founded Parlor. It's not like this is some conspiracy. You Google him, the first hit, I'm sure it's not anymore, but the first hit is his LinkedIn profile. His first job out of college was as a security clearance defense contractor. His second job was for Amazon Cloud or AWS, Amazon Web Services. His social network is funded by the Mercers, the kind of shadowy people who are also funded Trump, and it was heavily pumped. Not by like just some random conservative. It wasn't like Tucker Carlson or Lou Dobbs or whatever. It was Devin Nunes, the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. Anybody with a brain can see that this social network is a place for the deep state to get a whole bunch of right-wingers together, speaking their mind freely, thinking that they're in a safe spot. And the second that the deep state got what they wanted from it, they used it to plot an insurrection. They shut it down. And whether Parler finds a new server or not, it's done. It's served its purpose, and now it's serving another purpose of demonizing right wingers, and also making them look stupid because apparently someone downloaded and leaked like all of their user data as well. I mean, it didn't take a genius to see that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
it's total MAGA country there too. The only reason I was even on Parler is just, I do find it as being like a content creator, a pretty decent place because it is nice. I do like how like when you do put like YouTube links in there, like it does post, it allows you to watch the video in the app. And I feel like that's a big, for someone who's a content creator, that's a great thing. But aside from that, it was complete like cancer. Yeah. So.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's cancer. Maybe it's not. The thing like Jack Spirko is on it. I think Nicole Sauce, a couple of the Unloose the Goose people, and they talk about how like, oh yeah, the big criticism of it, it's a right wing echo chamber. That's not a valid criticism. Look, I mean everything's an echo chamber. You surround yourself with echo chambers. I'm in like 20 libertarian Facebook groups. It's not about it being an echo chamber. Everyone who's normal puts themselves in echo chambers. That's not the problem with Parler. Anyway, so that's that. I mean, Parler, it got canceled. Good riddance as far as I'm concerned. It's no longer there to entrap people I care about, along with Q-tards and other boomertarians and boomer right-wingers and shit.
I wouldn't mind for it to come back, but I do think it. I mean, maybe it is like a long con. Maybe you're right, but it is like I don't know. I feel like you take these friggin' boomer cons and you friggin' don't give them a place to talk. I think it's not good. Although I guess maybe not because like I was getting at earlier that it was like it's almost allowing a wound to fester. It's kind of the whole like I was talking about with the Obama thing. Like if you don't give these, you essentially curb their talking or them being able to express themselves. You're just going to end up with a problem later, and you're going to end up with something akin to what they came up with like Trump or whatever. I mean, I don't know if it'd necessarily be a candidate, but it may backfire. Maybe I know Dice has been talking about a lot about having like kind of how they were doing like Second Amendment sanctuaries in some area. Maybe maybe this will sprout a thing of like, hey, we tried the system and it's not working, and now we're just gonna disregard shit that we don't like, and the stuff that we do like, we'll be like, okay, whatever. But like, stuff like that, and I think that would be fucking awesome, personally. You know?
Well, once Parler went down, every Trump supporter I know jumped onto Telegram. I know that they jumped onto Telegram because Telegram, I guess I must have given it access to my contacts in my phone, but I got notifications. Just my parents, a couple of my friends, like everyone, all of a sudden joined Telegram, which is like an encrypted chat app that is probably going to be the next one to be removed from the app stores. Good thing about Telegram is that I think they're self-hosted, and like they really put a value on privacy and security, so that's cool.
Isn't Telegram just a chat app? And then all that?
Yeah, it's chat. You make groups. It can get really overwhelming.
Yeah, I think I had like a minute. I think it was like I want to say it was like a part of the problem thing. Maybe it was another app I'm thinking of, and I just got annoyed with it real quick. So I was just getting notifications out the ass all the time, and I was just like, yeah. I mean, I guess if you keep it to small groups, it's great. So it's probably great if you're trying to like, say you're a boog boy and you're trying to have an off, to talk off the the beaten path, sure. But I don't know. I mean, I guess I just don't care to interact with people like that. I didn't really dig it. But I mean, that's cool.
I just looked at my icon. It's got 983 missed messages from, I turn off notifications from it on my phone, but on desktop I just kind of let it go and just check it every so often. There's a few really good groups like Xavier Hawk. He's got his Fire On group, which is equal parts pretty cool, but also pretty weird. There's a couple of people in there that are like just full on Q. So, and I'm at battle with Q. So before we like run out of time or whatever, I want to put this kind of thesis to you. So we've already talked about they're a private company. They can do what they want, right? That's the like libertarian blind spot, and they're absolutely wrong about it. Libertarians are brainwashed by this. They're a private company. They can do what they want because these aren't private companies. The left is completely brainwashed and has a complete blind spot when it comes to like the science, capital science, and academia and the media. If it's, if this was true, it would be on the news or whatever. And the right now is completely because you can't get at the right through academia and media. They don't trust those entities. And so they just had to come up with this cue to get them brainwashed. And I think these three things play right into the cathedral's clutches. I mean, the cathedral wants the right to be panicking about imaginary bullshit. They don't want the right coming after them with their guns. And they want the left on their side, and they want the libertarians as much as they can get them on their side. And, the LP and Reason and Cato, I got into it with Alex Narasta from Cato the other day. And I don't know if you know who that is. If you haven't been, so I used to listen to the Cato podcast and get real into it. Alex Narasta is their immigration guy. And he's, if you're into open borders and stuff, he's all right on immigration. But he was like full on private company. They can do what they want. I called him a simp for fascism on Twitter. I said, you're not even smart enough to be an actual fascist. You're just a fucking simp. Anyway, I get really worked up about this stuff. My parents or at least my mom is real into that. She doesn't actually. It's weird. She'd never heard of Q. She didn't know what it was, but she knows all of the Q conspiracy theories because she calls it doing research. I mean, all it is watching hour-long YouTube videos of some dude sitting at his desk in his home office. Which, I mean, granted, that's what we do too. But
if you're trying to get reliable info, probably another place. It's just two dude bros bullshitting. I do
right. Well, we're not claiming to have insider information from Trump. You know what I mean? Like, so anyway, how much, do you have like a time limit? Are we like literally running out of time?
We're good. I mean, I generally if it gets over an hour and a half, I feel like that's when you lose your audience. They're like, this is too much. But no, I mean, honestly, the longer episodes I find to be better because it's just kind of if we get to that spot, it's because we're jiving, dog.
Cool. What are we at right now?
We are at 105.
Okay, cool. Let's go to the next topic. Let's get this done. We don't need to do 2 parts. We can lightning round this.
Oh no, there's no way. I want to focus more on the. I think we could at least do a 30 to 50-minute episode on the agorism politics thing. I think that'd be fun. Maybe me and you can both go rewatch each other's episodes.
Okay.
Get more out of it. But yeah, no, I also want to get into. I mean, we can't go through this, and I feel like we're gonna go on some tangents here. That's why I'm saying there's no way we have enough time. Donald Trump just became the first president to ever become impeached twice within his presidency.
Okay, I think this is a complete non-story. I don't think it's anything. Look, if the Senate convicts him, then he can't run for president again because it will be a conviction for inciting an insurrection. Yesterday, he was down in Alamo, Texas. It was really funny. Monica Perez, who I listen to religiously and I love, and she was just on my show. Go check it out, blackbird.substack.com. They made the mistake of saying that Trump was giving a speech at the Alamo. No. Trump was in Alamo, Texas, which is a little tiny town on the border. He was surveying the wall, and he said something like, look, I'm safe from the 25th Amendment. I guess he must have been legitimately worried that his cabinet was going to remove him from office. Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't know what's going on. It wouldn't serve them to remove him from office. Anyway, his cabinet's nothing but a bunch of deep state people. People are thinking that Pompeo's on his side. That's the big thing. They think that this is the Q thing now. They think that Pence is going to be arrested, of course, because they're all going to be arrested. Everybody's a pedophile or whatever, and they're all going to be arrested, except Pompeo. He's going to be the VP in Trump's second term. Anyway, Trump acknowledges at this Alamo, Texas speech that Biden's going to be inaugurated, but Trump's not in danger of the 25th Amendment. And he said, but the Biden administration better watch out because it's going to come back to bite him. And that to me sounded like he was going to run again in 2024. I mean, I can't imagine the Republicans would be dumb enough to nominate him, but Republicans have done dumb things in the past.
I wouldn't be too surprised, honestly. Yeah. I think he's kind of become more notorious than the GOP in itself in a way. I mean, yeah. I do agree that he probably wouldn't be able to do it again because I feel like they kind of had just I know they had kind of put up their shields with Ron Paul a little bit, but I don't feel like they really had their shields up high enough. For example, what happened this year with Tulsi over in the with the liberals, they kind of just shielded her out. I feel like part of why Trump even got in was because Hillary was trying the Pied Piper strategy. She was trying to get him to be the nominee. That way she could have an easy layup to get in. But little did she know, that was supposedly that was the what she was shooting for, and it completely backfired. So it's I also think is the GOP just kind of had a blind spot up, and they just I don't think they realized or knew how to deal with him. It was just, I mean, I don't know. There's so many different ways you go with it. Just how government just sucks. It's someone just came in and just kind of generally talked kind of like a normal person to some extent and just completely blew their shit away. And that's all it took because they just been so inundated with their own people for so long. And he was able to get through. But I do think it'll be kind of the Ron Paul effect where it's it's probably not going to happen again. Because they shielded Ron Paul out. And after that, they kind of were this shit ain't happening again, And I still feel like it probably wouldn't happen with Trump. But I do think he has the real grassroots support for it. I think the establishment would do every damn thing they could to keep him from running again.
I think the party would be ready for it this time.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna.
The other thing, Jeff Zucker was in charge of NBC when Trump was on The Apprentice. They were buddies. And then Jeff Zucker was in charge of CNN when Trump was running for president. And Jeff Zucker is the one who made Trump an actor. He's also the one who made him a politician. I mean, it doesn't seem like a stretch to me that CNN invented Trump, the politician, in order to boost their ratings. And I mean, obviously you just have to look. You can see that the main establishment corporate media. I mean, this has been a bonanza 4 years for them, and who knows how they're going to stay in business after this. But I mean, they just got to drum up all kinds of new stuff. I mean, you know, and you just have to look. The latest on COVID is these freaking mutations of the virus that may or may not spread faster or may not be resistant to antibodies. It's the most ridiculous. It's just so dumb.
We did get a touch on that earlier of how, like, I was getting at, that was like one of Yarvin's things where he was getting at how, like, the media, like, really during Trump's reign, just kind of like it was a boom for them. And I think a lot of people forget during the Obama years how much they were just dying and becoming irrelevant. And so I do think that's going to be really interesting going forward. I feel like mediums like we have are just going to take over. Because, I mean, how many people watch podcasts? Even now, even with the boom they got at Trump, how many people really fucking watch the news? And then even then, take into account how many of those people are like 20 years from dying.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So I think it's going to be an interesting time seeing how this Biden plays out. And
incidentally, that's about how long Yarvin says it'll take for his sort of designed like new version, you know, America 2.0 or maybe 6.0, depending on how you look at it.
To be honest, I've only kind of done a cursory review of Yarvin. I've watched pretty much all like video reviews. I haven't really read him much to be honest. I am interested in him, but I'm not interested in him that much. I mean, I'm
super interested. I fall asleep reading his blog. I am a paid subscriber. I find him incredibly fascinating. I don't agree with him on everything, which is fine. But you know, I appreciate him enough to throw him some money every so often. So
yeah, I like his thought process. Even if I don't agree with it where he ends up at, it's still very intriguing to see how he ends up at conclusions that he has, you know?
One thing he's way over my head, and I think that's pretty common. The comment section on his Substack are like, yeah, we don't understand most of this either. But you know, he just like throws just random Latin phrases throughout his writing and stuff like that. It seems kind of pretentious, but you know, I mean, you look it up, it's fine. What were we talking about? Impeachment. Yeah, I don't think the impeachment's a big deal. I think it's look, they were going to do it. They couldn't not do it. The Senate's not going to vote on it until the 19th, the day before the inauguration. If they vote to convict, then it just means that he can't run again. If they don't convict, maybe he'll run again. And so what, as far as I'm concerned?
I agree to an extent. I think it's a story and a non-story all at the same time, because it is kind of like, who fucking cares? Like, whatever, he's on the way out. But at the same time, it is kind of interesting that, like, you know, they went after their hallowed ground, and now they have to make a symbol of him. I mean, don't get me wrong. You'd think that you would just like just stop kicking a dead horse, just let him go away, just let him be relevant. Because if anything, like, you know, I think doing it is going to fester more problems for them. Mm-hmm. You know, especially if they remove him. I don't think he'll get removed, but if he does, I think that's going to be bad for them, because I think it's going to really look bad on the GOP, and I feel like it's going to really disenfranchise a lot of voters. And so, I mean, great for people like me and you, because I'm all like, fuck yeah, I want people to lose all the faith in the system they have, you know, lose that myth of authority or whatever. Like, that'd be amazing. But for them, I feel like that's a negative. But I feel like sometimes they don't realize this and they just react in the moment, which is, you know, like, I think it's because of their time preference. They just don't give a shit.
Well, and technocrats, they always overestimate their abilities, and they underestimate the people who they're, you know, trying to subjugate, I guess. But on the other hand, I don't know. I mean, to me, like, the more division and the more confusion and the more anger and the more emotionalism that they can drum up, the better it is for them. And maybe I'm missing the forest for the trees here. But, you know, libertarianism is not popular. I don't think that most people are going to lose faith in the government per se. They're going to lose faith in this government, and they're going to want a bigger, stronger, more authoritarian government to take its place. And on the other hand, I think that that's also what the technocrats think. And Lord knows they aren't nearly as smart as they think they are. So, you know.
This guy tries to do it. listening to your episode with Pete today, and I thought it was really interesting that he kind of brought up, I think Engels is what he brought up, and how fucking he was going on about how they hated the anarchists because the anarchists just wanted to burn it down, and he was like, but if they just burn it down, they're just gonna immediately turn to the people that they saw as authority before, and like they're just gonna essentially rebuild anew. And so I find that really interesting. But at the same time, I kind of went into my episode of Patrick McFarland's my thesis. I mean, not even necessarily mine. I've kind of derived it from other people. I mean, no one has an original thought. But like, my thing is, I think as these people clamp down power, as the powers that be clamp down power, I think they will have more power, but in a more centralized area. So I think partially, I do kind of like the idea of further division because that allows, while it will allow them to clamp down in certain areas, I think it will allow for certain zones of more freedom, if you will, like outside the system. You might get situations of secession, or I mean, I don't know. I know a lot of people have been talking about secession a lot lately. I don't think it's going to work out like people think of with Civil War, be North and South. I mean, maybe it'll be different states here and there, but even then, it's almost like urban versus rural, and it's like, how does that even break down? I don't know. You know what I mean? And with the technocrat going forward, I'm sure you've heard of Agenda 2030 and shit. Like, I do think it's going to be like you're going to have the urban locations that just like really clamp down. I think you're going to have people in the rural areas outside of it, they're going to have more of that freedom. And I think that might be more how it breaks down going forward. So, I mean, and I think a further division will, in a sense, allow them to clamp down more power, but it will also provide more opportunity for freedom in different areas, if you will. So, I mean, that's kind of how I look at it.
All right. Yeah, I think that's more attractive to me. I like that. I like that idea better. It also kind of matches with the Great Reset's sort of, I don't know, plan that article that kind of went a little bit viral where the writer was like, it's 2030, I own nothing and I couldn't be happier, or something like that. She talks about how, her life in the city is, there's no privacy, there's no personal property. I mean, maybe she has a toothbrush, but she certainly doesn't have a car. If she needs a car, she just, takes a ride share or uses one of those shared cars like Zipcar or whatever. But she talks about how there are some people who just couldn't handle this technical advancement and they all fled to the country. And like, yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to let us flee to the country and do what we want, then fine, we'll flee to the country. I mean, I'd rather not. Like I've always said, I love living in the city, but like, I don't know. I mean, in order to enact this Great Reset, they're going to have to create a situation where people are not just like willing to accept it, because that's never going to happen. People aren't just going to accept this revolutionary change. They're going to have to demand it and need it. And that's what scares me.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I actually had John Bush on forever ago, and he brought up that too. And I mean, obviously I'd kind of heard about it before. It's funny. I'd just gone off the heels of reading James C. Scott's Against the Grain. And it's just funny how history rhymes. And like, yeah, I don't know if you, I mean, I don't know if you've read it, probably not. I mean, it's a little more obscure, but in that he kind of goes on how the earliest states were formed, and they were formed around the advent of agriculture. And so what happened is you ended up having the fertile areas were the areas that the state kind of implemented. But then one of the main points he goes into the book is how in those times, like there ended up being essentially people who lived outside the fertile areas, and those were essentially anarchists or like people with like tribe type societies. And he was going into a lot in the book and how like if you look like at like fossil records and stuff, that you can see that most likely these people probably actually had a better standard of living. Like they looked healthier. Because, I mean, you look at, like, how agriculture works, and it's like they're, just eating a shitload of wheat and bread and, like, just not eating, like, how humans are supposed to eat. And they actually generally weren't as healthy. And so the kind of one of the theses is sort of the book, which is how, like, there were anarchists that we just didn't really even realize. And just, like, history doesn't tell that story because history is told from the perspective of governments. And it is funny because when I first heard about the 2030 agenda thing, I've never really heard anyone actually bring up this point aside from me, really, to put those two together. It literally is just a modern version of that, because the technocrats are trying to implement and the only place they can really implement that is in the urban areas. It's just not practical in the rural. And we're going to end up with it basically, like, I see history rhyming and having like a repeat of it. and you're going to have people in the outskirts are going to have a completely different style of life, and it'll look very foreign and maybe even almost like backwards to the people living in there. But I think they're going to have more freedom and more liberty, and I think it's going to be better in the long run, So I've always found that to be fascinating. That's kind of where I've derived a lot of this from, was that. And I don't know. Looking at history kind of, I think, helps tell where things are going. And also, not to go too much into like another rant, but I also find it really reminiscent of the agoristic revolution that fucking Konkin talks about in NLM. Like, because he goes into how like they'll start being like pockets of statism and stuff. And obviously obviously in these rural areas, even in like what I'm talking about possibly happening, are not going to be full on fucking like anarchy and shit. Like, there probably would be some form of government, but it's still going to be, you're going to see that contrast between there and the urban areas. And so I do think it really is very reminiscent of what Konkin goes into in like the agorist revolution, and how you're going to end up having pockets of government. And I think that going forward in the future, I think it's going to be a beast that slowly dies, and it's going to assert its power in smaller and smaller locations. Maybe it'll make a resurgence at one point, but that's what I see going forward.
Yeah, you just have to look at all the county sheriffs in, mostly rural areas who refuse to enforce the COVID restrictions. You're going to see more and more of that, especially, and this is something that Jason Stapleton used to talk about a lot. I don't listen to him really anymore, but back when he was doing his like libertarian podcast, he was saying like, look, if you're going to ever run for office, run for sheriff. That's the chief law enforcement officer of your county, and that's the office that can make the most difference in the way your local area is run. And I think we're seeing more and more of that. You set the stage for how these laws are going to be implemented. You don't really get that like as a mayor, where you've got the chief of police who may or may not even be reporting to you. But as the county sheriff, and especially out in the like unincorporated areas that you're patrolling, there's a lot of good that you can do. I don't remember what I was driving at. Oh yeah. So that's a big reason. That's a big part of the reason why, those areas out in the sticks are going to be the places where you're going to find freedom, even if you're in the middle of a big state, and not even too far from a big city. Because the county sheriff, who is the one who's in charge of implementing all of these things, is actually responsive to the people, because in general they're elected. It's one of those.
Probably knows in smaller areas.
Yeah,
the smaller they are, the less distant you are from your elected officials, in a sense. So
yeah, true. It's one of those rare occurrences, and I don't think democracy is great, but local democracy, if you're just a county or a city or a town or a village or whatever, is probably the best way to run it. Really, what do most people want? And if you don't get what you want, it's usually not going to be too bad, because you'll be able to complain to the people who around you. So anyway, I'm running out of brain energy. And I see we're at like 123. So
yeah, I think we're at a pretty good spot. I don't know if you have any other major things you want to bring up. This is we kind of got through all I really want to go through. Like I said, I did kind of want to go into that other thing, but now I'm realizing that's a whole other episode on its own. So maybe we can schedule for that.
And the thing is, I think that you and I are more on the same page there than Sal and Pete. And Pete isn't even on a different page. He, on my show, he was like, look, I'm not a maximalist on anything. I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm not a gold maximalist. And I'm not an agorism maximalist. He thinks that agorism is the best way for an individual to gain freedom, but it's not sufficient. Like, you're even living as free as you possibly can, you're still going to have the state bearing down on you. So maybe that's a preview. Maybe I need to re-listen to both of our episodes. I think
it'll be fun. I do think that's a good, interesting episode. I was foolish for thinking we could just squeeze it in as an aside. Not
me, man. I I don't think of myself as like a talker, but apparently I can just ramble forever, or I can bring out rambling in other people. Because like I was on Daniel Elwood's movie review podcast, the Actual Anarchy. We were talking like from their opening show, which isn't broadcast, to the very end. We were talking for like 4 hours. It was insane. So I must have gotten that from my mom. I don't know.
Yeah, I told you multiple times that you need to not talk down on yourself so much, because I know you and I do the same thing. I started as an interview show. You're an interview show as well. But I mean, I do think you totally could do a solo thing if you wanted to. I mean, but I think you're a better conversationalist than you believe. But it's kind of like a nice little crutch for guys like you and me to be like, we'll just bring in someone with interesting ideas and let them go. And you kind of put yourself down and be like, I don't have interesting ideas as much, But I don't know.
Funny you should mention that as we're winding down. My rebrand also involved going to a new host. I'm now on Substack, which, look, if you're starting a podcast that's not going to be like a YouTube streamed thing, Substack is the way to go, I think. It merges everything you'd want from like a Patreon without Patreon's baggage, and then also just free podcast hosting, which is really cool. But for premium paid subscribers, I'm going to be doing some solo episodes and some writing and stuff like that. So that's something to look forward to. It's like $10 a month, I think.
Are you going to pay for it? Or are you talking about to be a subscriber?
To be a subscriber. I've got a discount running. I don't remember what all. I probably should have looked that up before we started. But and if you email me or sign up for the free thing and reply to an email, I can give you a discount code if you just want to trial or whatever. But that's at blackbird.substack.com. And then one thing that I'm really pumping right now, and this is, I've talked to John and Derek, but this is just something that I'm super bullish on, is this Greater Reset, which it's being put on by John Bush and Derek Bros of Freedom Cells. And it's pretty cool. They're doing it the same week that the Davos crew are meeting in Davos. They're for the Great Reset planning, which is January 25th through that week. They're doing the Greater Reset, and I am really, really strongly encouraging everybody to sign up for that at greaterreset.org to kind of learn about agorism and other things too. There's a whole long list. It's like 4 or 5 days long. So
yeah, I'd highly suggest for you guys to go check out fucking James' last episode with Pete, and they had a preview in there for it. For one, that episode was a good episode. I mean, you guys kind of went into a lot more than what we talked about, and I found it to be really. But I do think that it was really cool, the trailer for that. Just seems like a really cool idea. And I mean, I like John Bush, I like Derek Bros, I like just the generic concept of being like, "Fuck your Great Reset."
Yeah. That's a couple of my episode with Monica Perez, which I posted earlier this week, is also good. And then Derek Bros just posted a video on his conscious resistance thing that I don't know if you do like links or whatever, but that's another thing to check out. And if you just go to consciousresistance.com, I think it's called like, oh, this is so professional. Yeah. It's like typing on the screen. It's not even consciousresistance.com. Whatever. It's Conscious Resistance, and he's talking about how the tech companies aren't private companies, and it's really I don't know why this is such a bugaboo for me right now, but I think it's really important that that libertarians come around on that, and that they do it pretty damn quick. Because these are the people who are going to be running our lives. This is the state. Like it was a blind spot for Murray Rothbard, because Murray Rothbard wasn't living in the early 21st century when the state and these mega corporations were merging.
Yeah, I've implied multiple times in this episode, I really do feel like they are overstepping big time. But if we allow them to overstep and don't act on it and use that energy of them overstepping to counteract them, then it doesn't mean shit. Then they just get to overact, and that's not even overacting. That's just an adequate amount of acting. You know what I mean? So that's kind of why I did really like the idea of this, what John Bush is putting on here. So with that, dude, it's always a pleasure to have you on here. Send me any links you want. I'll put in the video description. You got anything else you want to plug while you're here, or was that all of it? I mean, you kind of already did your plugs before I even did the whole, show me your plugs.
Yeah, no, sorry, I jumped the gun. Yeah, let me read my Bitcoin wallet address onto the. No, I'm just kidding. Just send me cash. It's fine. I'll figure out something with crypto. What else? Is that it? I think that's it. I think I'm good.
All right, for me, like I said at the beginning, I'm on the No Way Jose YouTube channel. I'm also pretty much anywhere you can find audio podcasts. I'm on the Liberty Movement. This episode will not be the Liberty Movement. If you want some of my political takes and also to get my content earlier, you need to be on this channel, the No Way Jose channel. Yeah, like I said, the Liberty Movement's on YouTube and BitChute. The Liberty Movement's also on Facebook and MeWe. They have a group. You can contact me at thelibertymovementglobal@gmail.com. Like I said earlier, go check out endthefed.app. Give me your feedback. It's something I've been considering promoting. And I'm a tech idiot, so I like the concept of it, but I need some feedback from you guys. Like I said, it's always a pleasure having you on. We'll definitely have to do this again. I really dig it. So yeah, because I was didn't expect to do a whole lot more. It's the same thing, the same conundrum I had with Patrick McFarland. You get with people you have such good chemistry on, and you're like, shit, this is gonna be a two-parter now.
Yeah. All right. The other thing, follow me on Twitter because I lost 23 followers in the Great Purge of 2021. So
you think about follow me on Twitter too. I have nothing. I just started recently getting on Twitter, and I'm starting to enjoy it more. It's fun.
Yeah, Twitter's fun. It's addicting and it's fun, and it's our fucking overlords. Was it Carr or Aaron? One of the Timeline Earth guys was like, look, the only reason to be on Twitter right now is to bring down Twitter. So let that be your motivation, if nothing else.
And I like to talk to officials, but
yeah. All right, cool. That's it for me. I've plugged all I have to plug other than my hair plugs.
Go check out James. You won't regret it. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good shit. With that, deuces.